and we'll an email.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be coming from. Thank you so much for joining us. It's certainly my pleasure to welcome our board members to our first face-to-face board meeting in over 16 months. We're here in Denver, Colorado, and like I said, enjoying being back together for the first time to discuss how we're going to reopen international travel. Thank you for taking the time to join us via Zoom or via the phone today. We certainly have a lot of information we're going to bring forward, and we're going to jump right in. I'm going to turn it over now to our CEO, Chris Thompson. Chris.
All right. I held through that. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome to everybody, board members here, board members online, and to our partners and friends that have dialed in. I have to echo the sentiment and the excitement that the chair voiced for us to be able to be here first time face-to-face has been awesome. So I'll just open up by talking about you heard me talk about this for the first time at the last meeting. It's the glimmers of hope. And I'll reinforce some of those glimmers that are still in place and even maybe more compelling. And then otherwise just where we are as an update. The return of the domestic tourism economy, I think, again, has become quicker and more powerful than any of us could have anticipated. And that's great news for all of us. But for us here at Brand USA, not only is it good news for us, but we know that it's good news for our partners that contribute and otherwise engage with us. So that's really changed the landscape of what things look like for us. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. We're very appreciative of our friends on the Hill that navigate advocacy for our industry. And then as it relates to anything tied to travel policy, we're very appreciative of all the support we've had over the course of 2 reauthorizations. And as we're addressing the challenges that we're now facing, the reception we've received on the Hill, cross parties, cross chambers, and just in general, as it relates to what they think of the industry and then what we think of Brand USA and what we're doing together has been amazing. And we're hoping that some positive news is coming down the road as it relates to that. I think at the last meeting, you also heard me talk about the challenges to our funding model have been that, and we learned this going into this pandemic, is that we have access up to $100 million in our travel promotion fund, and that's never been an issue, but we learned that we only have access to what was generated in the year prior. We learned about this time last year that was only going to be $62 million this year. Our original budget that we put forward did not anticipate that we were even going to be able to achieve that, mostly due to the fact that our partners that normally contribute and engage with us were going to be challenged to do so by consequences to the pandemic that were outside of all of our controls. As a result of those glimmers of hope that I covered at last meeting and the ones I'm reinforcing here, the landscape for our partners has changed, whereas they weren't even interested in talking to us about international, because that's going to be one of the last things that returns. They're now not only interested, but they're also now refocused and understand that it's going to come at some point. We'd like it to be sooner than later. And what we have in place to be able to help lead them back to this, lead all of us back to that is viable. So many outreaches have been made to our partners between the last meeting and this one in support of our ability to be able to tap into that $62 million that's there for us. It's really the only thing we have a chance to control. So I'll say broadly, thank you to all that have stepped up in the last 30 days, well, 60 days, however long it's been. Thanks to the ongoing conversations that we're still in the middle of and what everybody's planning to do. I said to the board in prior sessions that we had, the response from the industry was overwhelming. It was probably the best example of how the industry feels about who we are, what we do, and how our collective partnership in navigating international has been, and so that's great. Today, what you're going to see is the evolution of our engagement framework, which is we're still in our state of readiness. We still have lots of gating criteria that have to happen, but we're right on the brink of being able to go into recovery. So what you're going to see is the evolution of that being right at the brink. And I'm really excited about what's going to be brought forward. By law, spelled out by the Travel Promotion Act, August 1st of every year, we have to bring a framework of a budget, a framework of a plan forward for our friends at Department of Commerce to approve and then take on to our congressional champions. So you'll see that brought forward today and voted on. We yesterday spent with the board a considerable amount of time, most of a day, initiating a strategic visiting session. And this is for us to be able to not be caught up in the here and now, but to look forward and beyond where we are now and understand that there are going to be brighter days. And what does that look like for us? We basically are challenging our mission, our vision, our statement of purpose, and all the value propositions that we have seen develop and have been part of, and you guys have been part of informing over all these years. And I have to say, when you do that, it's a very interesting process. It makes you vulnerable because when you reach out to everybody, you're asking to give opinions, whether it's board staff, contributors, marketing partners, and everybody else. Most of it's really positive, but you're also going to understand where you can do better. So I would tell you that was a constructive session we were in yesterday, and we look forward to moving forward. We're hopeful. Our friends at US Travel are saying IPW that Las Vegas is still happening, so we're looking forward to planning for that. And then you'll see in our conversation that we're looking forward to our event that we're going to be able to host again in person, which is Brand USA Travel Week Europe, which we'll host again in London in October. So without further ado, Mr. Chair, I just want to reinforce all the optimism and excitement that you have and say, as a Brand USA team, we're ready to go and just waiting for the right time. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate your comments, your enthusiasm, and your leadership. It's gotten us to where we are today. Tom, I think it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Chris. What a pleasure to just be together with all of you. First time in a long time. And to kick off the marketing report for you, our board, and for our stakeholders around the world who are joining in and watching today. Every day we use our available resources along with our significant marketing and training platforms that we've developed to continue to work aggressively and relentlessly to make and keep connections and to inspire travelers around the world. I ended my update at the last board meeting with that statement, and I start with it today. Brand USA continues to work aggressively and relentlessly to help keep and make our trade and industry connections and to inspire travelers around the world. Today, we're holding our 6th board meeting of the pandemic. But we also held today our first ever global media forum on our first ever virtual platform, the Brand USA Global Marketplace. We connected 160 journalists from around the world with about 100 of our destination partners in one-on-one meetings, and also with some really wonderful content as well. This is the 20th event that we've held on this platform since launching it in October 2020. And I also would be remiss if I didn't just call out and thank our partners at MMGY, Hills Balfour in the UK, who just do so much work with us to help these kinds of things happen. Even when we fully return to live meetings, this marketplace platform will continue to provide an invaluable bridge to the world for our destination partners. Right now, we're restarting a process of our content creation to fuel our award-winning storytelling platforms as part of our reentry strategy. We're planning for our presence at IPW, as Chris mentioned, which is our biggest global moment. And we will be holding our 3rd Travel Week Europe, our industry disrupting event, live in London, October 25th to 29th. We enjoyed our time last week in Baltimore at Destinations International's annual meeting, where we reconnected with hundreds of our stakeholders and engaged them in our 2022 planning and continued our efforts to build value and to raise matching funds, an important part of our efforts right now, and our work continues. The only thing that we're holding on in this moment is our media buying, which is ready to start at a moment's notice when the time is right. And when that time comes, it will be obvious and it will be quick, and the activity will come fast and furious, but we're ready for it. So we are and have been on full throttle, and we're going to share today snapshots of our larger efforts that we've been undertaking before the pandemic, things we've created during the pandemic. And there just have, I just want to reiterate, there has been no let up over these last 18 months. So we're privileged to be the industry's bridge to the world, and we're excited to share this update with you. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Aaron, to talk about our fiscal year business plan, fiscal 2022 business plan and objectives.
Great, thank you, Tom. So as Chris mentioned at the start of the meeting, this is the time of year at which we are preparing our documents for the Department of Commerce along with state and DHS. So we'll be bringing forward to the board today for discussion and vote our FY22 objectives along with sort of summary business plan and the summary budget that will support those objectives. So I'm just going to give a top line look at what that is, and then I'll hand it over to Tracy to fill in a lot of the colorful detail about what that will look like. But just to review, this is per the Travel Promotion Act each year, at least 60 days prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, which for us is the federal fiscal on October 1. We submit these documents to Commerce. The Secretary of Commerce has approval authority over our objectives in conjunction with state and DHS, and they receive a copy of our summary business plan and budget as sort of backup for those. So there is a document that the board has received that contains all of these things that basically lays out how we're approaching FY 2022. Next slide. But just as a reminder for folks, as we remain here in FY21, this was the core of the framework that we laid out a year ago as we were preparing for the current fiscal year. And the core of this really is, how do we, in a world that is gripped by a pandemic, how do we continue to make important contributions to the travel ecosystem across our markets, many of the things that Tom just went through. How do we maintain not just a state of readiness, but a state of important intervention in these markets while making sure that we're conserving our resources appropriately for recovery campaign. And that's really where we still are today. This general framework really is applied on a market by market basis. So we maintain, a real state of activity as we are monitoring our gating criteria. This is a snapshot of what some of those criteria look like. And on a market by market basis, we'll be moving forward to recovery mode as we bring forward our recovery campaign and our media buys in FY22 according to the sort of market and fiscal conditions as we get there. So just in a top line nutshell, this and the next slide will be what our proposed objectives are for FY22, as well as some of the measures that we'll use to report on our success against these objectives. And I'll just go through them briefly here. So objective 1 is really to help the U.S. travel and tourism sector, the recovery of the sector by driving international visitation and spending, obviously on a market by market basis as conditions warrant. And so I think that's fairly straightforward as an objective. That's why we're created, and we really look forward to bringing forward that recovery campaign to help the sector. Some of the measures that we propose to use to report on our success against this objective include the number of markets where the conditions ultimately permit us to execute a campaign, which is outside of our control, but obviously frames where we are able to bring forward the campaign. Obviously, our top line reporting to our stakeholders in Congress around our incremental impact on visitation and spending, as well as the return to the economy for each dollar that we spend on our marketing. Measure 3 is the value of attributable bookings driven through some of our activation co-ops and partner programs. A little bit later in the presentation, you'll be hearing about that new piece of our recovery campaign that's really looking to drive quick results for our industry in a recovery. And then measure 4 are more classic tactical campaign KPIs, such as our impact on sentiment about the USA, on attributes about the USA, on intent to visit the USA, as well as things like social engagements, impressions, and video views. Objective number 2, similar but a little bit different, really is about how do we help the world of stakeholders in the travel and tourism industry re-engage with international. And that's really important, not only that on a top line level, the United States is re-engaging international, but that as many of our stakeholders and partners as we can get back into that international market, start getting their share back. And some of the measures that we propose for this objective are a percentage of previously engaged partners that are returning to market in FY 2022. Of course, this will be affected by the conditions in the market that allow us and our partners to move forward, but we have high hopes here. The number of markets where we are helping partners re-enter, and that is a critical piece of our ability to re-optimize into our global footprint and to regain share for the United States. And then, of course, to represent all parts of the country, including rural and urban areas alike. The final two objectives, number 3 is to integrate critical themes into our recovery campaign and into our overall content efforts. And this is really important because we really want to make sure that these important themes and so forth are not standalone verticals, but really are woven into the fabric of everything that we do. And so one of the measures here will be our ability to integrate multicultural marketing strategy into both the recovery campaign itself, as well as our ongoing content, digital, and event platforms. Similarly, to live up to our mandate around communicating travel policies, we'll be weaving that kind of practical information into everything that we do throughout the year, and then we'll be prepared for other needs that may arise, whether they be about public health or what have you. And then finally, maintaining sound financial management and corporate governance. This is obviously very important to us. We will continue to track overhead as a percentage of the overall budget, although there's obviously a lot of flux in the marketplace and flux in the budgetary conditions at the moment. But that's obviously an important metric for us to track. And of course, our compliance with our own bylaws and the Travel Promotion Act requirements. So in a nutshell, those are the sort of high level objectives. As we are a little over 60 days out from the start of the fiscal year, there's still a lot of unknowns. Obviously, everything from the spread and mutation of the virus to entry policy to airline capacity and so forth. But we feel like this is both a prudent and pretty directional set of objectives that really are going to frame everything that we hope to bring forward in FY22, assuming conditions allow us. So with that, I'll pause, see if there are any questions or discussion. I think the vote will actually be.
We'll actually take that up if someone would like to make a motion.
Yeah, if I can, I'm happy to make a motion, and in doing so, I'd like to suggest at least conceptually some edits, and perhaps also in the form of a comment as well. So if we could go back, thank you, to the first slide. I think you called it out appropriately, Aaron, when you mentioned that measure 1 under objective 1 is, as you acknowledge, something that's really outside your control, outside of Brand USA's control specifically. And only that it were within your control to open up those markets, but alas, it is not. It is, however, certainly reflective of what's contained in the objective itself, where you speak to the constraint, where you talk about as conditions warrant. So I think pulling that language up into the objective as part of the constraint that you're wanting to overcome makes sense, and then leaving the remaining 3 as your key measures makes sense. That way you're measuring things that are actually within your control. The other comment that I just wanted to make is regarding objective number 2, and I just wanted to applaud you for especially measure 1 under objective 2. I think the call out there about not only acknowledging but celebrating Brand USA's role in engaging partners, in aiding in the recovery by engaging the partners, that it's not only Brand USA, but it's Brand USA and bringing those partners to the fore, bringing them back into these markets, and continuing to earn that trust and confidence that I know is something that is very cherished by the Brand USA team. It's something you've never taken for granted. It's something I applaud Chris and the entire team for, and you're calling it out in this measure. And I think that's worthy of being called out. So with those recommendations or suggestions, I would move that with those as part of it, specifically around measure 1, objective 1, I would move adoption of these objectives as conceptually amended.
So we have a motion from Todd on the FY22 objectives and measures as amended. Can I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Noel has seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Secondly, we would like to quickly revert back. The chair moved a little too quickly in the beginning. And so we do need an approval of the minutes from May 19, 2021. They were emailed to the board. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Noel has made a motion. A second.
Second.
Todd has seconded. All those in favor, please let it be known with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes have been approved. And so at this point, we're going to turn it over to Tracy, who's going to work through our integrated marketing, reentry and recovery engagement framework.
Kyle. And actually, it's going to go back to Aaron quickly, just to talk about the state of recovery. That's okay.
I'll be brief. No, it's just a couple of slides off. So next slide. Just wanted to provide a couple of updates on the general state of play in terms of our public health and travel recovery. I'll note that a couple of these stats are a week or so old, and so already I think a little bit overtaken by events, but I'll try to update as we go. So first of all, we're delighted to see, of course, the growth, the robust growth in domestic travel that Chris referenced at the top of this. The rollout of the vaccines has really changed the risk equation for a lot of Americans, and this has really helped lead to a quicker and more robust recovery of the domestic travel market than I think many of us would have expected even 6 months ago. In general, pandemic era restrictions have started to come down across our states domestically since our last meeting in May. And although we're seeing the rise of the Delta variant, some states and cities starting to take a look. In general, we're pleased by these trends. As you can see here on the slide, as of July 14th, nearly 345 million doses have been administered, including over almost 185 million Americans who have received at least one dose. So the adult population percentage is very positive. You can see the 7-day moving average of new COVID cases as of July 7th. That number's come up a little bit, and in many states has been rising. So we really need to keep our eye on that. But in general, if we look at where we were a year ago, 6 months ago, we're still in really good position. So you can see here some of the state of recovery in the domestic market since March. The throughput through TSA has been very positive. I believe it's at about 80% of the pre-COVID throughput at the moment, and really rising. So we've seen over Memorial Day weekend, over July 4th weekend, really positive indicators. Hotel demand is up. RevPAR is up in much of the country, and travel spending is up, of course, domestically, as many on the line probably have been experiencing themselves. This does not mean that things are all the way back into the black, as it were, but certainly we're trending well on the domestic side, and really, of course, waiting to see on the international side. Travel related leisure and hospitality employment has increased quite a lot in the spring and now into the summer. We've seen really positive gains. I think still compared to the overall unemployment rate in the overall economy, not great. Obviously, this industry was, especially and acutely impacted by this pandemic, but we have seen some great gains in some of the latest sort of monthly employment data. International inbound travel, of course, remains deeply depressed, as everybody is aware. You can see that year over year, things are down quite a bit. I do want to say that we're aware that the White House has convened these expert working groups related to Canada, to Mexico, UK, and to the EU about determining how and when to safely restart international travel. These working groups are being led by the White House COVID-19 response team and the National Security Council, along with many interagency representatives and their partners at home and abroad. And so we know decisions are being made according to public health criteria, and really, looking to see the work of those working groups and when we can get a little bit better sense of the policy side of the reopening of international travel. And just as a reminder for the audience here, these are some helpful links that you can go to at any time to see kind of the latest protocols and also just the latest tracking data. Speaking of tracking data, I'll cover this briefly. Hopefully many of you on the line have been tuning into our periodic webinars that track our proprietary research on consumer sentiment and really across all of our gating criteria in our key markets. So, as those of you who have been tuning in have been seeing, intent to travel internationally and intent to travel to the USA certainly can vary by market. The good news is that even though there's still a lot of hesitancy in many of our key markets to travel internationally, we know there's a lot of pent up demand, and we know that the US is over indexing compared to overall outbound travel from many of these markets. And so we feel like we're in a very strong position. And we simply are waiting for the conditions to be right and the policies to be right in order to do that. These are some of the forecasts from Tourism Economics, just forecasting out the next 4 or 5 years in terms of when the United States will return to pre-COVID to 2019 levels of arrival and spend. I believe the latest forecast is not to get back across the board until 2024, 2025. Obviously, we're hopeful that as we bring forward our recovery campaign, we can have a positive influence on that. And then finally, just a reminder for folks that touch briefly on the gating criteria, but on our corporate website, thebrandusa.com, you actually can see real-time tracking of on a market-by-market basis across at least 11 of our key markets, all of these kind of key indicators that we're looking at to know when we know that the time is right to transition from a state of readiness to a full recovery mode in these places. And so I encourage folks to check that out and see how various markets are tracking across these metrics. So with that stage set, Tracy, I will turn it over to you to fill in a little color about how we intend to actualize against those FY22 objectives.
Thank you very much, Aaron. So as he said, there's still some flux out there in the world, but our goal has been to make sure that our recovery campaign was ready to go when the time is right. So what I'm going to take you through is some of the strategies, some of the working creative, some of the testing that we have been undergoing over the last little bit to make sure that we are ready. As Aaron just stated, the markets that we are focused on for the return to travel earliest are Mexico, Canada, and Europe. And specifically in Europe, we are focused on the UK and Germany, although as things change, we will be adding more markets to that list. The great news for us here at Brand USA is that our campaign United Stories is still built to suit the situation. And the way it has been constructed is nimble enough to allow us to shift the messaging so that we can be very relevant for this point in time. Before I get into some of the strategy, I do want to take a step back and let the folks that are listening in know that we were awarded a national gold Addy for the campaign for the specific execution, Winter White in Wyoming, for the cinematography, which means that this is best in class for this award and put us up against advertisers, some of the largest advertisers in the world. And so we're very, very proud of this. And I want to personally thank our partners in Wyoming, the folks at Beautiful Destination, and all the people at Brand USA that helped make this a reality. And they really, I think probably every person at Brand USA was able to touch this in one way or another. So we are very, very proud. And it's great validation because as we move forward, we are going to continue to build on the basis that we've created. Many of you have seen our strategic framework before, and it's worth sharing again because I think it's really important. Our goal is to lead the recovery of the U.S. travel and tourism industry, which Aaron talked about in our FY22 business plan. And we continue to believe we have 3 tasks. First, we want to prove we're ready to accept visitors and they can have a great time when they're here. We want to welcome the world back. And then we want to provide enticement and conversion to book. We're calling this our 3 phases. Phase 1, prove we're ready, will really focus on influencers, owned platforms, branded content, and always on social. Phase 2 is when our paid media kicks in. So phase 2 and phase 3 are our paid media, where we will focus on TV, online video, earned media, public relations, out of home, and sponsored content. And then from an entice and convert perspective, that phase 3 is really a focus on bookings, working with airlines, OTAs, tour operators, and search. So that if you don't have this kind of burned into your memory from all the different times I've mentioned this, this really is the strategic framework that we have embraced, and I will be referencing as we go through some of the different creative executions. So first, prove we're ready. Our global influencer program, which was originally scheduled to kick off in August, has been shifted to October of this year to make sure that we are in alignment with the timing of the entry policies. The Global Influencer Program will travel around a number of different itineraries, and we really want to use this to show fans what to expect. one of the components of welcome that we think is really important is to make sure people know what to expect and how to prepare when they get here. So the influencer program won't just be showing great trips, it'll be showing them on their way, on the airplane, how, what it's like when they get here. And we'll ask them to write their own mini blogs. We will feature their pre-trip and post-trip itineraries on our microsite. And this will be distributed across all of our owned platforms as well as the influencers channels and partner channels. Second, we want to welcome the world back. The integrated campaign, which I will take you through, really is another iteration of our United Stories executions. But what we wanted to do before we went forward was to do some research to make sure that at this moment in time, the campaign, the messaging, and our approach was still relevant. So we evaluated it to measure the effectiveness and impact of the TVC, that's television commercial, and overall, the creative performed as well as expected and actually exceptionally well. An intent to visit, the ad rated in the top 10% of all finished campaigns, increasing interest to visit the USA, which is one of our priority KPIs for the campaign. Perception-wise, travel intent and positive perceptions increase before and after ad exposure. The messaging was successful in its intended positioning of the US as a diverse mix of people and culture from around the world with a breadth of possibilities. The favorability increased, indicating the ability for the creative to change attitudes, really important for us. Key measures, the TV commercial performed strongly on clarity and inspiration, with relevance and uniqueness being positive. And then overall, we tested a number of different calls to action in different markets, because we know that in transliteration, transcreation, different words sometimes come across differently in different markets. And the ones that we put forward performed equally well, variations by region, which are easily handled in transcreation and translations. And the voiceover, we tested celebrity, single narrator, and multi-voice approach, and they all performed equally well, which is great news for us. So we've got some options. Okay. One of the new aspects of United Stories this year is this idea of my destination story. And what we are going to do is to create these videos for all of our states. This is a partner program that we're encouraging our partners to take part in. It can be the story of a state, of a city, of an attraction. You can get as micro as you want. But one of the things that we realized from talking to people all over the world and talking to locals, but also talking to visitors, is there are as many ways to tell the story of the United States as there are people in the United States and people that want to visit the United States. So we want to make sure that we are really creating and curating this host of stories. So I'm going to show you next one that we did for Florida. And this is not quite final, but it'll give you a taste of what this storytelling approach is going to look like. One moment, there we go.
My Florida story is told on the water. The beaches and coast are unlike anywhere else.
Si quieres algo único y diferente, ven a disfrutar del distrito de Wynwood en Miami. Los colores, las sensaciones, es una vibra.
My vibe is kicking back with my son on the beach. It's our little slice of heaven.
That's how we tell our Florida story.
Y ahora, cuéntanos la tuya.
So in a moment, I am going to show you how our storytelling, our sequential storytelling approach works within our strategic framework in phase 2 and phase 3. But one of the things I want to call to your attention is At the end of this particular video, and even in some of the others that you may have seen, this call to action of tell us your story has been very successful, asking people to think about their own story, their own travel story to the United States. So phase 3, our comms task is to entice and convert. And so again, our retargeting strategy is to retarget engaged viewers who have consumed our video along a sequential path to conversion. So we might start, and actually I'll show you in 1 second. Here's a slide. It's a little bit of an eye chart. I apologize. But I think if you look at these in columns, there's scenario 1 and scenario 2. They both behave the same way, but it'll give us a chance to test which of these work best. So at asset 1, you have a broad video asset that really talks about the United States from east to west, north to south, and everything in between. Once someone has consumed and engaged with that video, we move into asset 2, which is a more focused, destination-specific execution. In this case, we're showing Winter White in Wyoming. Then that third asset would be retargeting to a booking partner, which could be a tour operator, it could be an OTA, it could be an airline. And so that really, if you think back to what Aaron was talking about in our goal, is to really help our partners earn back those bookings that they've lost during the pandemic. So this is a much more transaction-oriented approach, but it really builds on the best practices we've learned over the last few years with United Stories in driving inspiration. And the difference here is that the call to action is bookings versus a redirect to our website. Oops. Great. Any questions here before I move into our next topic? GoUS TV is our streaming video channel. Again, many of you hopefully are familiar with it and have downloaded it and have it on your phones, on your home televisions. And it's really our opportunity to tell the breadth of the story of the United States. Distribution update, I think, is, again, many of you know, during the pandemic, we halted production and instead focused on distribution. During the pandemic, as many of you guys know, people really did revert to storytelling, watching their screens, and spending lots and lots of time looking at videos and travel dreaming while they were stuck at home. Two of the distribution partnerships that we have engaged in that are worth talking about. One is with Plex. If you're not familiar with Plex, 20 million people in over 220 countries use Plex to access free, live, and on-demand TV. They can also personalize collections, and GoUSA TV and all of its shows are available to those Plex consumers. Samsung TV Plus, which we launched in the UK last summer, right about this time, also launched in India this year on 2.5 million TVs in March 2021. And Samsung is planning on expanding that distribution to 4.5 million TVs by the end of the year. The TV Plus app is also available in India on 100 million active Samsung mobile phones and will be pre-installed on new Samsung phones later this year. What's really interesting to us as we look at the analytics, and we have created a dashboard so that we can track performance, is that India viewers are watching an average 28 minutes a day of content, of GoUSA TV content, which is really very significant. But in the UK, viewers are watching an average of 63 minutes a day. So if you think about that, and you think about paid media and how you buy and you track by seconds watched and minutes watched, this is 63 minutes a day in the UK on Samsung TV. People that are engaging with our content on GoUSA TV and its playlist. So a little walk down memory lane. Since February 2018, this is the full roll up across all the platforms that GoUSA TV performs on. OTT is over the top, the mobile app, YouTube, Samsung, and Plex. We have 113 million plus views, which represents almost 83 million minutes of content views, or in another word, almost 1.4 million hours since we launched in going on 3.5 years ago. Just for June, this year, last month, the full roll-up, and you can see the growth with these new distribution partners, specifically Samsung and Plex. We've had almost 100,000 views, which is a 54% increase month over month. 2 million minutes consumed, or 35,000 hours. And this is showing you and actually the next slide will show you a little bit better. So if you can look at that top chart from June, the month of June 2018 to June of 2021, this is the growth. And I'll walk you through this. So in June of 2018, we had about 100,000 views. We had 16 million seconds consumed. There was no paid media. This was organic on OTT, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV. That was the OTT and app only. June 19, we have some growth there. The views were up, the seconds were up significantly, the hours were up. And again, this is without ad spend. Last June, we did have ad spending. This was kind of the tail end of the advertising before we shifted into readiness mode. But you can see with advertising how the views increased greatly. So we've got 4 million views, 235 million seconds, 65,000 hours of folks watching our content. Then we're back to June 2021. Again, we're not spending advertising dollars because we're in readiness mode, but you can see the seconds of content there, 125, almost 126 million seconds with those new distribution channels where we're basically going where the eyeballs are, have really improved the viewership. So what we will be doing when the time is right is investing in those eyeballs, as it were. So just a quick little wrap up on this section. The pandemic accelerated the trend toward video streaming. We all know that, many of us, from our own behavior and how we watched TV and Netflix and while we were stuck at home. The first 2 years, 2018 and 2019, represent about 9% of all of our views. Since 2020, organic viewership and session duration has shown strong growth, driven by our linear TV distribution and longer form content. So with access to millions of households and devices, which we did not have at the beginning of the pandemic, nor when we launched, our next step is investing in viewership on high engagement channels. So we're very bullish for GoUSA TV and where it's headed. I think that, as many of you on the phone may have also experienced, we have been on hiatus from production. We have not produced United Stories content. We have not been producing GoUSA content, original stuff. We've been curating partner and licensed assets, but we're about to embark on production again. And we're very, very excited that we will be focusing on a series that actually our partners voted on 2 years ago, and it's called Small Town, Big Story. And it really celebrates this idea of small towns and how special they are when added into a trip itinerary. And though we didn't know it at the time, small towns really have taken on great importance, especially during the pandemic. So what I'm going to, and working with Discovery too, so this is kind of a joint production. And what I'm going to show you next is a little snip of what Small Town, Big Stories will feel like.
What are you doing, Dylan?
I'm trying to get the ice to talk to me. I'm trying to get the ice to it makes these great kind of rippling crack sounds. So I know this ice is really thick, but that's still so scary.
Welcome to South Bristol, Maine, population 900. What seems like an ordinary, sleepy coastal fishing town has something truly incredible going on. South Bristol is one of the only places on the planet that still harvests ice. One day a year, people come from all over the world to haul mammoth ice blocks and throw a heck of a get-together while they're at it. Welcome to the party. It's time to break the ice.
I'm Dylan Thuris reporting for Atlas Obscura, and this is Small Town, Big Story.
So we are thrilled to begin production on Small Town Big Story. Actually, today at our first ever Global Media Forum, Ashley Davidson, the producer of our Ask a Local series, interviewed Dylan about this series. And it's really nice to see that we're able to bring these themes together of small towns, diversity, and the beauty of what you can discover if you go off the beaten path here in the United States. So we're very, very excited. As you can tell, I'm super excited about this.
Tracy, quick question. Can we get video of Chris out on the ice block?
Absolutely.
I got jumped on that ice. I was going.
Could we add USA after small town?
We can definitely think about that. Absolutely. Absolutely. One other thing I want to mention, we have after a months-long search, we have consolidated our PR efforts with Edelman. Edelman has been working with us on social media community management for I think it's a little over 2 years. And they have really just been wonderful partners. And so they are now going to work with us on all of our corporate PR, our executive PR, and also our global and our domestic PR outreach. So we're very excited. We onboarded them during the month of June, and they will they're drinking from the fire hose right now because we've got so much going on. They are also responsible for our in-market consumer and trade outreach in Canada and South Korea. Next are some upcoming events: the Global Marketplace, IPW, and Travel Week Europe. One of the things I want to talk about before we get into the actual events that are upcoming is an update on Brand USA Global Marketplace and where we think this is going. So with thousands, literally thousands, I think the last count was over 5,000 virtual business meetings on the platform, a host of focus on events, monthly enrichment and training sessions, and as of yesterday and today, our first public relations workshop and global media forum. The launch of the Global Marketplace, I think is fair to say, exceeded our expectations, has taught us a lot in the process, and has opened our eyes to some of the possibilities going forward. So as the world slowly reopens and we emerge, we envision an evolution that creates a resource that bridges both digital and physical environments, not just for meetings and events, but an always-on platform that continues to connect people with a clearer focus on networking. So we will continue to build on the one-to-one meetings that we've been hosting and that our partners have told us are of such high value. We will continue to build out directories to build those connections. We will offer enrichment and education. And then there are a number of different things that will be what Tom is calling phase 2.0 of this marketplace, which will include expanded market profiles for our partners that want to enter into markets, marketing best practices, Brand USA opportunities and programs, research, some of our analytics, certainly a news bureau service. We will offer social integrations. We will consider personalizing this so that people that come to the platform, it kind of remembers what you were looking at and what you were interested in and more. So this is, I guess it's been closing in on a year that we've had this platform, and there is much, much more to come. Events that we've held on the platform up to most recently are a number of different training webinars for UK and Ireland agents. We had a focus on Australia and New Zealand event, the PR workshop for our partners. As I mentioned, that was late in June, and then the Global Media Forum over the last couple of days. Planned events through June 22, although this certainly will change and expand, a number of one-to-one business meetings, repeating in the markets Europe, Canada, and Mexico. We're also looking at Asia Pacific and Latin America, a number of different focus on events, and then additional training events, webinars, holiday celebrations, and Travel Week Europe. Speaking of Travel Week Europe, you can register now at Brand USA Travel Week Europe. I think that says .com. I'm blocking myself there, but that registration link is live, and we encourage you to go check it out. That will be on the 25th and 28th. And as in our first year, it will be at County Hall in London, which is right in the center of it all. The activities that first day, October 25th, is really for our exhibitors. We will provide updates on the markets, Brand USA activities. We'll have industry experts and keynotes. and lots and lots of networking. And then on the rest of the week, we will have appointments, enrichment series, and networking.
Tracy, I was just going to say that I just noticed that's 14 appointments per day.
Per day, correct. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for catching that out. Then IPW, see you there. This is an opportunity for us to make a big stand, to share our new campaign, to let visitors interact with our many different platforms, and we will see you there in September. That questions?
Chairman, that's it for this.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Don to present the financials. Alice is still working in China, so it is quite early in the morning, actually late in the evening, and so she was not able to join us today, but Don certainly is going to walk us through the financials.
Yeah, I'll do the financials, and then Chris will walk you through our proposed budget. So starting, next slide, please. Somebody. Oh, that's me. So starting with the travel promotion fund, as Chris alluded to in his remarks, opening remarks, the fund is not fully funded this year. It's only $68 million. Year to date, we've submitted $18 million. We have an aggressive plan to get to that $62 million. So we're going to be aggressively working to get the additional $44 million by September 30th. From a partner cash contribution and in-kind contributions, we've grown that to $11.3 million year to date. And you can see by category that's on the screen, $3.1 million in partner contributions, $8.2 million in in-kind contributions, and $700,000 in sponsorship. We're looking forward to a robust Q4 for revenues in order to, which is a precursor to getting to those matching funds for the travel promotion fund of $62 million. In the meantime, we've spent the year really in a readiness mode, waiting for recovery. So year to date, we've spent about $19 million, and that has allowed us to maintain a strong cash reserve for whenever recovery occurs. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time. Hearing none, turn it over to Chris.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think it's slide, please. I don't know if the next.
Is there?
Okay. Wait, no, it's not. Oh, yeah, so I know. So, Mr. Chairman, as the board well knows, we walked through a detailed budget framework to go with the objectives and the plan that Aaron presented that you've already approved. So we need one more approval, and that is the budget framework. And as you'll remember, we laid out a state of readiness budget going into the new fiscal year that totaled just under $77 million. And we need a formal vote against that budget, a motion and a second, and a formal approval of that budget to go with our objectives that we'll send to Commerce on August 1st.
Okay, at this time, I would accept a motion from the board to approve the roughly $76 million budget that we discussed this morning.
So moved.
Moved by Todd. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Noel. All those in favor, please let it be known with an aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the budget has passed. Thank you for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And now we're moving into governance and nominating.
Okay. We heard in an information session this morning from the Department of Commerce that the Federal Register notice is open for board appointments. There are 4 board positions that are open currently. 2 of them, the State Tourism Office, currently held by Todd Davidson, is eligible for reappointment. The Hotel Accommodation Sector, Mark Hoplamazian, is also eligible for reappointment. The end date for applications is September 10th. You will need a cover letter and a CV. We have 2 other positions in the industry verticals. The City Convention and Visitors Bureau, currently held by Kyle Edmondson, 6 years of eligibility has been exhausted. Our current chair, we are grateful for the service. It has been incredible. Audit chair, treasurer, I mean, a number of positions, and having committed board members is incredibly important for us. So we're grateful. We hope your replacement is as similarly committed. The restaurant sector, Paul Brown, 3 years of commitment as well. Grateful for all of his service. He is incredibly busy. I believe they bought Dunkin' Donuts last year. He does not have the time to give to us. So his position is going to be open. We are going to be looking for the board to help. Commerce is going to be looking for the board to help to fill that position. That is the restaurant sector. That is open. Again, a cover letter and a CV. It's not a heavy lift, but we are open for business, so to speak.
Thank you, Jake. And again, I would like to encourage any of you who might be on the call who are interested in serving to go to the National Register. Serving on this board is a pleasure and certainly has been mine for the last 6 years, but also serving your country and serving the tourism industry is very well rewarding. And so I would encourage you to do so if you have an interest in doing that. As we look at the slide, our future meetings, which are still planned to be face-to-face, Mr. CEO, we certainly appreciate being back in the same room with each other. So in November, we will be in Washington, D.C., and then you can see the following schedule for the remainder of the fiscal year of 2022. With that, we will start to open it up to any questions. Aaron, I believe you might have.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions on the line. I'll go lightning round because I think we're kind of coming up on time, but a couple of sort of tactical ones for the marketing team. The first is about the My USA Story piece of the recovery campaign. And I think just in general, the sort of later phase of the recovery campaign. So I guess the question basically is, will everybody be represented in the recovery campaign, and in particular in their ability to tell their own USA story from a state and destination perspective?
So this is Karen. I just would like to answer that. We are working with our partners to look at how we can engage them into the My Destination story. And what we'll do is create a brief that they will complete to share with our creative team to pull the story together correctly.
Excellent. And then there was a specific question about the Insider Guide campaign, if that will be continued from a partner program perspective.
The Insider Guide campaign, the Insider Guide is not such a camp. I want to be sure that we're talking about the Insider Guide, not the Inspiration Guide. So I'll answer both. The Insider Guides are a tool that we use for tour operators and receptive tour operators to show proximity and bookable products that we do through our travel trade. The answer is yes, we are continuing them, and we are constantly building out itineraries. We're also tying those itineraries into our consumer campaign wherever we can, so it's integrated. As to the other program for partners, the Inspiration Guide, it is continuing. We are just amplifying the 2020 campaign across the media markets, and the borders open. And so we're working on 2022, and we've done a couple things of interest. One is it will be focused more on digital. We had nearly 90 tour operators who used our Inspiration Guide as a tool in 2019, and they had it for 2020 also. And there will be more digital distribution of our Inspiration platform, which then lowers the cost for all of those involved with that.
Excellent. And so in the interest of time, I'll group the remaining couple of questions, which really are about timing of the markets reopening. I think speculation about when certain markets may open or not open. We are, as Tom outlined at the beginning, we remain very active in our state of readiness. The thing that we're waiting for launching media buys for the recovery campaign is that the conditions are right in some of these markets. And so we are tracking that on a market by market basis, not on a global basis. And we are prepared to move forward, as Tracy outlined, according to what will perform well in any given market. There was a question specifically given the fact that we're not doing the media buys about our ROI. And you can certainly find our ROI numbers on our corporate website, thebrandusa.com. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but obviously in a year last year where there was not travel, the numbers were lower. The overall 8-year totals are still very, very strong. So I invite you to check out thebrandusa.com for more information about that. With that, Chris, I'll turn it back to you.
Could I add something? On the question that has to do with when the borders are opening, anyone listening, please go to your congressman and let them know that we want them to open the borders because it's important that they hear from as many constituents, and also on all the social media to lift the travel restrictions to the United States. Thank you.
Aaron, so as we wrap up, again, I'd like to thank everyone for participating, both via Zoom, via teleconference, and then those of you here in the room. To answer the question and kind of finish up the meeting, we'll actually steal a quote from Chris Thompson when he was on stage last week at Destinations International in Baltimore, that no one wants the borders open more than we do. And if we had any information to share with you about when they would open, trust us, we will be sharing that information with you. We are all in this together. We all are anxiously awaiting the reopening of the borders, and to Noel's point, are doing all that we can to advocate on behalf of the industry to get those borders open. We look forward to seeing all of you, if not sooner, at IPW. Thank you for your time today, and our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Aloha.